Welcome to Travellux. Travellux is our demo site. Or in other words, it's a site that we developed just to show off all the amazing features that DotCMS has to offer. We're going to begin things here with a front-end overview. That way, when we get to the back end, we'll fully understand all the parts and pieces and how they relate to their front-end counterparts. Beginning here on the home page, we can see some navigation across the top. We have a search function here, and we can see a cart icon and our personas icon, which we'll get to a little bit later. Some contact information, and of course, our logo. Right in the middle of the page, the first thing you see is a banner. And on that banner, we have a good call to action here, a button that offers 20% off in the shop. Below that, we can book a holiday by choosing a destination and some dates and clicking Book Now. Scrolling down the page, we'll find a number of activities that we might encounter on our travels. Scrolling further, we'll find some media. First off, we see a video for Costa Rica. Clicking on that thumbnail brings up an embedded YouTube video. We could watch it here and click away whenever we're done. We'll see a nice image, as well as some products that we could access from the store right here and now. We could add them to our cart or view some details to learn more about the products. Scrolling down even further, we'll find some recommended events, with dates to let us know when those events are occurring so we could go and experience some new and interesting things on our travels. Scrolling below that, we'll find some recommended products, again related to those products in our store. And finally, at the bottom of the page, we'll find our About Us, latest blog posts, and contact form in the footer. You'll notice I have a button in the bottom corner to scroll all the way back up to the top right away. Before we take a look at some of the other pages in the site, I want to talk about personalization. You may recall I mentioned this persona icon earlier. If I click this, we get a drop-down. However, I want to point out that this is something we've added just to show you how personalization works in DotCMS. Having a drop-down with personas in it is not something you would usually find in the real world. I would like to show you how this changes the way various users would interact with our website. Currently, we're on the default persona, but I could change to, say, the eco-enthusiast. Clicking on this will change what we see in our homepage. Scrolling down, we'll actually find different activities, products, and content that we'll view based on that persona. As soon as I click the drop-down and change again, you'll notice, once again, everything has been tailor-fit to that persona. Next, let's take a look at the travel blog page. Here we can see a number of blog posts that were written by our content contributors and published to the site. Let's take a look at ecotourism in Costa Rica. Here we can find a nice blog post explaining ecotourism in Costa Rica, and as we scroll down, we'll find that there is some social media integration here as well. Below that, we'll even find a comment section allowing our users to interact with each other directly on our site. Let's go back to our travel blog page and try a different blog post. Let's take a look at 5 snow sports to try this winter. Here, once again, we have a nicely written blog post by one of our content contributors, and scrolling down, we can find some destination integration. This is a great example of the flexibility of DotCMS. You'll see that these are destinations, and we have a destinations page on our site. Let's keep in mind this Colorado and the Rockies destination. If I click on the destinations page, we'll see that Colorado and the Rockies is, of course, one of our destinations. And it's not just the destinations. If we click on Colorado and the Rockies, we can scroll down and you'll find the activities that we saw before being used here specifically for Colorado. Scrolling further, we'll find those upcoming events, but again, these are specific to Colorado. If we scroll even further, we'll actually find a nice gallery. And now let's go back to our travel blog. This time, let's choose French Polynesia, everything you need to know. Once again, we have a nice blog post all about French Polynesia. Scrolling all the way down on the page takes us to a recommended product section. These products are all recommended for a trip to French Polynesia. I could go ahead and buy them right away, or I could click on the store option in the navigation menu. You'll notice when we hover over store, we have a number of options within that in the navigation. Let's just click on store for now. Here we'll see a number of products that we could choose from, and on the left-hand side, we have a number of categories. Let's choose snow. Here I have a number of products related to snow. Across the top, we'll find a number of tags that are all related to snow. I could choose one of these tags to actually filter down the products I see to only show me what's relevant. For instance, if I click on the snowboarding tag, I'll only see products related to snowboarding. Let's take a look at this snowboard. I'll click View Details, and if I want to, I can just choose to add it to my cart. Here we can see that snowboard listed with some other products we've added to our cart, and we can see the storefront integration into our website, including the ability to apply coupon codes and check out directly from our site. Another option we may want to explore is integrating an intranet to our site. Here we have an example under the Members Only option in the navigation menu. You'll see here that credentials are already populated, so I can go ahead and click Login. Now we can see an entirely different experience with different styling and design choices just for the intranet site. Then I can click Log Out to go right back to our public site. Now that we're more familiar with the front end of DotCMS, let's take a look at the back end. Here I am logged into the back end of my DotCMS instance. What I'm immediately seeing is a dashboard, which can display Google Analytics once we have set it up appropriately. On the left-hand side, we see a blue column, and this can be expanded or contracted using the button in the top left. Here is essentially our general navigation. Each one of these options is called a tool group. It is exactly that, a grouping of tools that we are able to select and navigate through. However, all of these are customizable, and yours will likely look different than mine. We can even create individual tool groups for different users and roles so that only certain people or people with certain permissions can access certain tools. It's always good to ensure that we're limiting people's access to only what they need to have access for. You'll see, for example, some of my tool groups are Site, where I can view my browser, templates, containers, publishing queue, time machine, and links, or Content, where I can see all of my different content here, and then the search option. Media, where I can view my media. Marketing, where I see personas, rules, landing pages. My content model, which is extremely important, where I can see my content types, my tags, my categories. The dev tools, where I can see site search, plugins, query tool, GraphQL, and settings, where we can get our users, sites, roles and tools, apps, configuration, and maintenance. Again, all of these tool groups can be customized to your needs per user or per role. But again, this is our general navigation and how we will be working through the back end of DotCMS. Now, on the top right of the page, the first thing we'll see is a user icon. If I click on this, it will allow me to log out, view my account, or if I have permissions, I could choose something like Login As, where I can test as another user. Next to that, we'll see a notification bell. If we had any sort of changes made and to be notified of, then they will show up here. And next to that, we have a drop-down option. If we have multiple different sites, if we have a multi-tenant instance in DotCMS, then we could select from them here and work in those individual sites. Now that we understand a bit of the general navigation, let's take a look at some of those features. If I go to Site and Browser, here I can navigate through and explore all the different parts of my site. You'll see that they're organized into folders on the left-hand side, and I can easily access any part of my site whenever I see fit. One of the options I have here is the publishing queue. If I am using push publishing, I can come here to view what items are currently in the queue to be published next. Then we can see content. In the content tools group, we have all kinds of different content. For instance, activities or banners or blogs. The thing is, each one of these options is essentially the same option. It is the search option. However, they've already been pre-filtered to exactly a specific content type that's been chosen. So all of them are essentially a content search, and we can search through our content, we can search specific content types, and we could go into advanced to have some additional filters as well. From here, we could click into any one of our content items and examine it as necessary. We could also edit it from here. What we see here is essentially our content properties page. And anytime we're editing any of the content on our site, we'll see something similar to this. We can see where it lives, the title, the layout, etc., all kinds of relevant information about that piece of content. On the right-hand side of this, we can see our workflow options, the actions that we can take according to the content we're looking at and the state that that content currently exists in. Clicking any one of these will allow us to make changes and do something with that content according to the workflow that has been set up for us. Venturing further down in the tool groups on the left-hand side, let's take a look at content model. Here we can see our content types. And here I could select any one of these content types and modify the fields in them and change what I see and what is accessible in that content type, what sort of information is stored with it. I could add fields to it or remove them or modify any one of them. It's important to note that in many areas in DotCMS, there are tabs across the top. We see here we have fields, relationship, permissions, and push history. So as well as our tool groups on the left, you may have tabs at the top of the page. Also in our content model tools group, we see things like tags or categories. These are parts of taxonomy, ways that we can organize and make sense of the content within our site. Below that, we see dev tools. Obviously, these are some slightly more advanced features like our site search, where we can set up and maintain our site search. Plugins, where we can modify or set up any plugins that we might want to use with our site. And various tools like ES Search, Query Tool, and GraphQL. Below that, you'll see settings. And this is where we can see things like our users and modify those users or set permissions for those users. We also see sites, where we can modify and take a look at our sites and the details of those sites. Roles and tools, where again, we can modify permissions and set individual tool groups and modify this left panel right here. We have apps here, where we can incorporate third-party apps. And configuration, where we can actually configure our site itself, get into things like licensing, for instance. This is a very helpful place to know about so that you can apply your license to your site appropriately, your network, and your publishing environments for push publishing. And the last thing we see here is maintenance, which is another helpful area for maintaining your site. Here we can see things about our cache, if we want to flush our cache, refresh our stats here. We could look at our index if we need to re-index things or rebuild our index, our tools, log files if we needed to grab a log if we're having issues, system info, threads, etc. Lots of helpful information that we can take a look at. Now, all of this we'll dig into in more detail as we continue through the course, but we like to just give you a bit of an overview of what the backend looks like and how it works, so that when you start clicking through this, you won't be totally overwhelmed by all of the new things you'll be seeing.